Okay. How do you learn or remember new words when learning a foreign language? That is the question that we're looking at in this session. And essentially, there are three things I'm going to be covering. One, in order to learn new words, you need to be able to review the word until it becomes a part of your long-term memory. Secondly, in order to review words, I highly recommend using a flashcard application. And thirdly, my current recommendation for the best flashcard app out there is Quizlet, using its long-term learning mode. So let's kind of go through those 3 points. First things first, let's understand the reality of the brain. If information is not reviewed, if a new word you learn, it doesn't matter what language it is, if you learn a new word and you don't review that information, it's not reinforced. And if it's not reinforced, it gets forgotten. Our brain has too many things to pay attention to, too much information that swamps us all the time for it to pay attention and remember things that we're not reviewing consistently. When we start reviewing things, it tells our brain that this is important, and our brain will learn to remember it. I taught myself Hebrew. Now I speak it fluently, and I'm learning Arabic now. And when I was learning Hebrew, I would ask people for the definition of a new word that I'd learn in Hebrew, and then something very strange and frustrating happened. The following day, or maybe even later that day, I'd completely forgotten the word. I couldn't retain new information. I couldn't retain new words. Some people can, but most people can't. And I thought, well, this is not good. This is not a very effective way to learn. Why am I even asking people for definitions then if I'm not going to remember the definition that they give me? So I quickly realized that I needed a way to remember all of these new words. So I started with Quizlet, which was and has been a flashcard application for quite a while. And I wrote all my new words into Quizlet. I got to about 300, 400, 500 words in Quizlet. One side of the flashcard in Quizlet was the Hebrew word, and the other side was the English definition. And I was going through this list of 300, 400 words each day, and it became absolutely ridiculous because it took up so much of my time. And I was also really ineffective because I was looking over some words that I already knew and didn't really need to look over them anymore. There was no way of kind of differentiating between words that I had already learned and words that I hadn't. So then I heard about spaced repetition learning. By the way, I'm talking here based on what's written in the caption below this feed. So if you want to follow along with me, it's too much just to listen to me, you can read along. So then I heard about spaced repetition, and spaced repetition is essentially intelligent flashcard or intelligent studying, whereby you only look over flashcards, you only look over words that you're just about to forget. So it's a really effective way of studying, and it's scientifically proven. And a lot of flashcard applications have this algorithm which is designed to only show you flashcards just before the time when you're about to forget them. And that creates this space between your repetitions, between your reviewals, hence the name spaced repetition learning. So I read a book called Fluent Forever, and if you're an avid language learner, you should definitely read this book. And in Fluent Forever, it spoke about a flashcard app called Anki. And I, with all great vigor and excitement, started using Anki. I thought it was going to be my salvation for finally remembering words in Hebrew. And Anki is a very tricky interface to master, and it's not at all user-friendly, but I was able to teach myself Anki with the help of the Fluent Forever book, and I learned thousands of words in Anki, and it really did help me to build a good vocabulary in Hebrew. I tried to use Anki with my students, and they did not like it at all. They really said it's too non-user-friendly and not intuitive, and it's also not fun. So then I looked elsewhere, mainly for my students. And then I found an application called Brainscape. Brainscape, same thing, spaced repetition app, like Anki. But it is much more fun to use and much more easy to use. And when I started showing it to my students, they liked it and have enjoyed using it. The kind of downside with Brainscape is it costs not a small amount of money. I think, and I'll talk about in a moment, there's a better option than Brainscape, but it's definitely a good option. and I think better than Anki. And just recently, I've started drifting away from Brainscape and coming back actually to Quizlet, because Quizlet have recently put in a mode to their app called long-term learning. And long-term learning is just another name for spaced repetition learning, which is what this feed is about, which is really important for remembering new words in a foreign language. And in long-term learning, you essentially can go through your flashcards just like you can in Anki or in Brainscape. And Quizlet is super user-friendly. It's a really pretty interface. And also, it costs money to use the long-term learning, but it's about $1.50 US a month. And I think that's worth it, especially if you're really committed to building a vocabulary in a foreign language. A little bonus with Quizlet is it works awesome on your phone, better than the other apps. You can make flashcards on the go, and you can record audio into Quizlet really easily, which I think is an awesome feature, because having audio in your flashcards is really important if you want to actually know how the words are supposed to be pronounced. So Quizlet's my go-to app, and that's what I've started using with my students, and that's my kind of recommendation for learning new words in a foreign language. The only last thing to mention is Fluent Forever, the book that I read at the very beginning, is bringing out their own flashcard app, which promises to be really good, really professional, and really effective, and probably fun as well. That will be out in the next couple of months, and I'll be able to let you know what I think about that. One maybe last question is, well, okay, so I'll go out and use Quizlet or Brainscape or Anki or whatever, but how do I make flashcards? Now, remember that I said at the beginning of this talk that I started by making English on one side and Hebrew on the other. I no longer do that. Even with my beginning students, I don't want them to have English on their flashcards, and I'd encourage you not to have English on your flashcards. Just have your target language, Hebrew, Arabic, French, Italian, doesn't matter. On one side of the flashcard, have the word, the new word, and on the other side, have a sentence with that word and have that word blanked out. So just say in English you wanted to learn the word sentence, and on the back of the flash, on one side you'd have sentence, and on the back it would be something like, today I learned a new in English. Today I learned a new sentence in English, and you just have that blanked out. They're the type of flashcards I recommend. Fill in the blanks, and I think I'll probably just do another video showing you how to make these flashcards and maybe some different variations on them that might be useful for you. So thanks for listening. I hope it was useful, and feel free to post me any questions you have, and I'll attempt to do another video answering those questions. Enjoy your language learning.